bringing you the true value by interpreting great books from around the world. Hi, this is Sally with the Book Talk. Today we're exploring the book Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, subtitled Lessons Learned from Working in a Crematorium. First off, a heads up. This book deals with horror movie stuff like corpses and decay. If you're easily spooked, maybe skip listening alone at night. If you tend to get queasy, best not listen while eating. All right, thanks for sticking around, brave listeners. Let's dive into today's episode. In traditional Chinese culture, death is a taboo topic. But life, from start to finish, is all about birth, aging, sickness, and death. No matter the highs or lows you face, it all ends when death comes. This book is about death and how we handle dead bodies. Like the author says, the more we get death, the more we get ourselves. This book was a surprise hit in the US in 2015. The Times called it a game changer for death views. The author, Caitlin Doughty, is a young American woman. The Washington Post dubbed her a reliable guide through death's strange world. New Scientist, a UK science mag, praised her for bringing back humor, a defense trick shrinks forgot. The book has 19 chapters covering three key parts. Part 1 covers why she took the cream job and her daily work there. Part 2 explores death customs from around the world. Part 3 shares her thoughts on death and the funeral biz. Okay, first up, why Caitlin chose the cream work and her 6-year experience. Caitlin's from a small town in Hawaii, where she spent her first 18 years. Back in her childhood days, she'd seen death plenty in cartoons and horror flicks, so it didn't scare her. At 8, she dressed as Zombie Queen for a mall Halloween contest and won prize money. But as she changed out of her costume to find her dad, she saw something awful. A little girl on the second floor escalator trying to climb the handrail. He suddenly tilted and fell from the escalator 30 feet high, landing face down on the metal counter on the first floor with a terrifying thud. The little girl's mother screamed her heart out, rushing down the escalator, frantically pushing through the crowd and security guards. Dowdy wrote that she had never heard such desperate cries before. The sound of the little girl hitting the counter, that sound kept echoing in Dowdy's mind. If it happened today, she'd definitely be diagnosed with PTSD. But back then, that sound was the main theme of Dowdy's childhood. That night, Dowdy was too scared to turn off the lights and sleep, sitting up until dawn. It was as if the girl had fallen into Dowdy's heart, striking deep into her fears. The accident scene wasn't bloody, like on TV shows, but it was a real event happening right before her eyes. It wasn't until that night that Dowdy truly realized she would die someday and everyone would die. From then on, the seed of fear took root and grew in Dowdy's heart. She started having hallucinations, always feeling like a cloaked grim reaper was lurking at the edge of her vision. She began to reduce anxiety through compulsive actions and ritualistic behaviors. For example, before feeding the dog, she had to walk around the house 3 times. While walking, she only stepped on dead leaves, avoided new ones, and checked if the door was locked, repeating it 5 times. We might guess that Dowdy developed OCD. As she grew older, Dowdy gradually moved on from that incident, and the ritual behaviors quietly stopped. But the impact of that event was profound. She refused to admit death's influence on her and was greatly annoyed by her inner vulnerability. Sometimes she wondered how life would be different if she could directly meet death. So after graduating from college, Dowdy chose to work at a grim crematorium. She wanted to face death head on, confront her fears, and make amends to her 8-year-old self. She said she did this not just for herself, but to help other children understand death early on so they wouldn't suffer severe psychological trauma like she did when first encountering death. So, what exactly was Dowdy's daily work like at the crematorium? Here, it's necessary to first introduce North American funeral culture. In the US, both burial and cremation are options because a significant proportion of the population practices Christianity. They believe that when Jehovah returns, all deceased believers will be resurrected. So, relatively more people choose burial. Working at a crematorium is mundane yet complex. If burial is chosen, embalming is required. Since it's highly specialized, Dowdy rarely handled this herself. Her main daily tasks were preparing bodies' appearance and cremating them. First, her daily task preparing bodies' appearance. On her first day, the boss had her shave a corpse. Totally unexpected. Actually, many bodies have farewell ceremonies before cremation, requiring beautification. Later, Dowdy faced more complex preparations than shaving. Once preparing a 90-something woman, not simple makeup. As Dowdy said, making corpses look normal is deeply abnormal. She took out plastic eye caps, round spike-covered discs. Two purposes. Placed under eyelids to hide sunken eyeballs, making sockets look fuller. Second, spikes grip eyelids to prevent them opening, stopping corpses from staring at mourners. Without dentures, her lips caved inward, requiring an oral shaper. But there was more. Next came the needle injector, a metal tool that shoots wires into jaws to suture mouths shut. Pull the wires tight, tie them off, and the mouth closes. If eyes or mouth still opened after this, a secret weapon was needed. Superglue provided extra security beyond caps and injectors. This ensured families wouldn't see spiked caps or wires. The family brought clothes from her prime, stylish and slim. But after 2 months hospitalized, bedridden with IVs and machines, her corpse was severely swollen. The author stuffed the corpse into the lavish clothes, making it look like a mummy. Dowdy's next task was sending the body to the cremation furnace. He said daily work at the crematorium was more brutal than imagined. Every morning at 8:30, firing up 2 furnaces. Once the furnaces started, all peace vanished instantly. The workspace shifted to hell mode, stuffy, scorching, with machines rumbling like a devil's labored breathing. When the furnace hits about 800 degrees Celsius, that's when you load bodies for cremation. Each morning, the boss stacked California death certificates on Dowdy's desk. Using the certificates, she'd head to the walk-in cooler to find matching bodies. Each body lay in a cardboard box tagged with name and death date. Dowdy wrote that death gathers people who never crossed paths in life, like convening a UN summit on nothingness. While bodies burned, Dowdy had little specific work to do. She just monitored temperature shifts, occasionally cracking the door to check progress. After entering, the cardboard box burns first, quickly ash, fully surrendering the body to hellfire. Once organics burn away, massive changes begin. 80% water evaporates rapidly, soft tissues vanish completely. Through this long process, every trait of the deceased gradually disappears. Adults take hours, but infants need just 20 minutes max, the most heartbreaking moments. Entering the cold storage, you first see towering stacks of boxes, each holding an adult corpse. But dead infants aren't kept in such visible spots. They rest quietly on metal racks, in corners, like a sorrowful little garden. Larger infants wrapped in thick blue bags. Opening one reveals them, nearly lifelike. Tiny knit hats, heart pendants, little gloves. If not ice cold, you'd think they slept. Smaller fetuses, smaller than an adult's palm, can't be bagged. They're preserved in formaldehyde jars before cremation. Infant cremation follows a similar process to adults. Dowdy first registers the baby's name. The most heartbreaking part is when the baby has a full name, meaning the parents were ready to welcome new life. But their baby passed away. When the remains become ash with red embers, she turns off the machine, waits until it cools to 500 degrees Fahrenheit to clean the chamber. Then, Dowdy uses a rake to move bone fragments into the cremulator, the final step. Finally, Dowdy pours the ashes into a bag. places them in an urn, and it waits alongside other unclaimed urns for families. That's Dowdy's crematorium experience, the book's main content. Beyond the crematorium, to understand death deeper, she studied global funeral customs. She majored in history in college. For this book, she spent 6 years researching historical texts, weaving cultural insights into her work stories, adding historical depth. Next, let's explore part 2 of the book. For global funeral customs, she first examined cremation practices worldwide. In the 1st century AD, Romans built pyres with pine logs, placing the body on top before lighting it. After cremation, mourners collected the bones, soaked them in milk, washed them by hand, and placed them in an urn. In Japanese death rituals, bones also play a key role. Funeral professionals sit around the crematorium, taking bone fragments from the chamber and placing them on a table. Relatives use long chopsticks to place bones piece by piece into the urn, starting with foot bones, moving upward, ending with the skull. Only this way can the deceased walk firmly into eternity. But in some countries, cremation rites aren't as elaborate. In India's Varanasi, along the Ganges, 80 to 100 stone steps host daily cremations, conducted openly. Ashes and unburned bones are thrown into the holy river. Families who can't afford cremation still want loved ones in the sacred river, so under cover of night, they place whole bodies in the water to decay slowly. Beyond cremation, the author studied unique funeral customs like the Wari people in western Brazil, isolated tribes untouched by Western civilization. Then in the 1960s, Brazilian government and Western missionaries showed up uninvited, bringing diseases like dysentery, flu, measles. The Wari immune systems couldn't cope. Within years, 3 out of 5 died. Survivors became dependent on Brazilian meds. Hmm, hmm. Of course, in exchange, the Wari had to abandon a vital tradition, consuming their dead. Basically, they practiced cannibalism as mortuary ritual. First, the family prepared for consumption. They'd go house to house, removing a roof beam from each, leaving structures dangerously unstable. And anthropologist Beth Conklin believed the unstable roofs symbolized death shaking the village's peace. They'd bind the beams together, decorate with feathers, creating a roasting rack. Finally, the family brought out the body, cut it into pieces, and roasted it directly on the rack. You might find this a bit gross, huh? Honestly, yeah. Amazon's heat and humidity caused rapid decay. Imagine eating a rotting, stinking corpse. The relatives had to eat vomit, then return to keep eating. The Wari didn't eat people to gain strength or immortality, and they consumed bodies to destroy flesh. Only eating could fully dismantle and annihilate it. That's what they sought. After eating the flesh, they cremated the bones. Only then did the body vanish completely. This brought immense comfort to the family and tribe. Westerners couldn't comprehend this, but the author argues our views are trapped by cultural traditions, seeing Western funerals as truth and dignity. But that truth and dignity are just products of our own culture. The author also studied American embalming history. The birth of modern embalming in America has a long history too. The North American funeral industry claims it descended from ancient Egyptian techniques thousands of years ago, but that claim's full of holes. Ancient Egyptian methods are totally different from modern funeral home techniques. About 2,500 years ago, Egyptian nobles' bodies underwent meticulous treatment, taking months to complete. Ancient Egyptians saw embalming as sacred. Every step held deep meaning. Modern embalming has zero religious ties. It's purely market-driven consumerism. Actually, chemical embalming emerged after the Civil War. Before mid-1800s, Americans handled bodies at home, inventing tricks to delay decay, like soaking burial shrouds in vinegar or packing ice under corpses. After wakes, families placed bodies in coffins and carried them to nearby cemeteries. Then came America's bloodiest war, the Civil War. For 4 years, many couldn't retrieve sons or husbands from battlefields. Bodies shipped by train rotted in southern heat, stinking terribly. Some smelled opportunity. If families paid, new chemical embalming could preserve bodies right on battlefields. During the war, embalming was necessary. Families needed bodies for farewell rituals. Within decades, embalmers were rebranded as professionally trained technicians. Embalmer pushed this narrative. Their skill protects the public from disease and gives families beautiful final memories. All this death culture research, plus her firsthand experience, led to deep thoughts on death. She believes that in death-fearing societies, we need better ways to handle death and the dead. First, our attitude toward death. We start dying from the day we're born. But accepting death is genuinely tough, mentally, physically, emotionally. With advanced medical tech and enough money, we can delay death, but the cost is brutal. Bedridden patients need turning every few hours like pancakes to prevent blood flow blockage from body weight pressure. Without circulation, compressed areas rot, developing bed sores. Dowdy believes openly acknowledging death is vital. The sooner we consider our own and family's mortality, the better. This doesn't mean OCD level worrying, like daily fears of partners dying in crashes or your plane exploding. It means rational prep, refusing death talks with loved ones, no will, no DNR confirmation, no funeral plans. People ruin present and future this way. Countless bedsore-ridden corpses hurt more than dead infants or suicides. Sympathy won't fix it. What we can do, don't let death silence rob the deceased of dignity. Death-denying culture holds people back. Achieving good deaths, conquering fear, and clearing misunderstandings isn't easy, but other biases, racism, sexism, have crumbled fast recently. So Dowdy made it her mission to help people accept death's truth. And next, how we handle the dead. Dowdy also deeply pondered corpse treatment post-death. America's Christian, but religious influence weakens yearly. So religious death rites need secular alternatives, like accepting natural decomposition, letting bodies break down in open spaces, placing them in designated zones to solve burial or cremation eco issues. Few choose home deaths. But after witnessing all kinds of life and death, Dowdy formed her own views on end-of-life rituals. She said, "We're so spooked by superstition, thinking corpse germs threaten family health, that we skip proper goodbyes. Actually, corpses don't need our company. We need the corpse. Only by seeing it do you know they're dead out of life's game. Only by seeing the body can you see yourself clearly, knowing your day will come. Seeing leads to understanding. That's the start of wisdom." Like in Java, Indonesia, when someone dies, everyone in town must attend the funeral. The body lies naked, arms crossed over the chest, with just a cloth wrapped from chin to crown to hold the jaw. Close relatives hold and wash the body, accepting the death and saying their final goodbyes. All right, that's our interpretation of Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. The reading notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.